Good morning, Angeline. My friends, can you please type in your register number? I hope my screen is visible to you. So let's have some theory portion to wind up our discussion on computer networks during this semester. So it's going to be SD and software defined networking in data center. So there are three categories of data center, as you know. One is the private, the other one is public, the other one is something hybrid in between these two. What's a private? A single tenant. Now for the private use of a specific organization, it's not going to be open for outside people. Okay. The second category is the public multi tenant, where you will have the generalized data service or the data center service for anyone for that matter, for any organization, for any individual. The third one is the private and multi-tenant, where you provide specialized data center service on behalf of other organizations. All right, so you are the third party, but you support somebody else and you provide support only to them. So these are the three categories of data center. As we move on, so data centers are said to be residing in the cloud. Right, so there are three kinds of cloud which is known to you. The first one is the public cloud, where a service provider makes the service available to the general public over the internet. That's the important key. For instance, the Microsoft Azure and AWS. All right. So second one, not the AWS, but Amazon's Elastic Computing Cloud. The second one is the private, where you got the set of servers or network resources assigned for only one person. All right, and he is also put under the behind the firewall for a specific application and also for the specific duration. So the person who is enjoying the cloud service are not the owner of all this infrastructure, resource, and the hardware materials, but it is maintained by somebody else. The third one is the hybrid, which is the predominant one. Okay, where part of the cloud runs for the dedicated people, but other people it's for the general public and other people, right? So that's the major ones. That's the major driver for the data center and for the cloud technology. So the reason is the ability to dynamically assign the resources between tenants and to the general public. This is a major thing which is driving the software defined networking and also the requirement for virtualization. That's okay. What are the side effects? Main thing is the cost. There are benefits as well as disadvantages as well. There are three major business models, as you know: infrastructure as service, platform as service, software as service. I'm just repeating the terms known to you. Okay, so they all are provided based on the requirement, what kind of application, what kind of services a person needs, and also on demand. The major thing is shifting the capital expense to the operational expenditure, right? So that's the major paradigm shift you have got. So what are the demands of a data center? What are the requirements of a data center? They are categorized into five. One is the overcoming the current network limitation. We are going to talk about them in detail, and the failure recovery, multi-tenancy, traffic engineering, which is supporting the quality of service. Yes, these are the things we are going to talk in detail. So under the overcoming the current network limitation, I have confined our discussion under three topics. One is the MAC address explosion, the number of virtual local area networks, VLANs, and also a little bit about this spanning tree. If you guys have learnt about this earlier, whatever I'm going to talk to you is just a walkthrough for all of you. All right, so what happens in the case of MAC address explosion? We all know every of the switches and the routers, they maintain the MAC table, right? So that is mapped between the MAC address and the interface name. That's how it is implemented, and they are implemented the hardware for quick access. We know that because they are implemented in hardware, it also has its own limitation. You cannot virtualize this. All right, so what are the other things? The implication is, if the table is too large, again the hardware requirement is also going to be high. The cost of the switch is going to be high. Switch or the router is going to be high, and the company which produces this switch, they have to bear all this trouble, and of course they are going to overburden the end user. But if the table is too small, yes, there is a problem for the customer. What are the problems for the customer? Probably the further slides will help you to understand that more. So a little bit of history. The network in the past has the manageable switch, about the manageable switch where the interfaces can be, configured to support a specific VLAN and other security related things. All right, so they need the MAC address table. So effects, it really, puts the data center into trouble because it limits the number of servers and the VMs which are running on a specific device, as we have seen in the last class. All right. And also there is a trade-off between the physical layout of the network, because the hardware is available in a particular place and it is not a good design to have your cables running for miles. All right, because your UTP cable, STP cables are not going to support as well. So there is a limitation on the physical network topology as well, right? Moving on, earlier this layer 2, okay, we also slowly get into what's the current trend. Layer 2 separates the physical network. That also happens in the logical. Okay, if I have got some 10 machines connected to a switch at particular place, another 10 machines connected to a switch in some other place, they are represented logically and physically in the same way. All right, though the improvement in network virtualization gives little more support on that. All right, and the second major problem here is the MAC flooding. For instance, you have got the MAC table, which has got the limited in size, as I have mentioned. So, for instance, 100 entries. All right. If the 101st entry comes, there is no space for this particular entry to be made, and this is called MAC table miss. So the entry is not available in the MAC table. So MAC table cannot be consulted. Now the request has to be flooded over the network. All right. So that's the third point I read for you. It handles the case of a MAC table miss by flooding the frame out all ports, of course, except from which it is arrived, because I do not know, because there is no entry in the MAC table, it's full. Okay, so that's how the packet reaches everywhere, but it has a trade-off that it really wastes the bandwidth. All right, so this is a simple depiction which is available in the textbook. I have borrowed it to explain to you as well. So you have got the switch which has got the limited number of interfaces, and you have got the MAC table. And once the MAC table is full, it causes the incoming packet to fail their match. Obviously, because no match is found for the new incoming packet. All right, resulting the packet getting flooded to all ports. Because you should know the packet has to be forwarded. To ensure the reliability, you have to do something that the packet reaches the destination. All right, so having that in the objective, it's going to flood the network. So what's its side effect? The problem here is when the destination receives, this is how the MAC flooding is going to help you. Okay, you can ask a question. What should I do for the MAC flooding? What's the advantage? All right, when the destination receives the frame, it prompts a response from the destination. All right, so upon the reception, the switch understands, okay, this is the entry, and it may be populating the MAC table if there is a space. All right, now this will really work unless the MAC table is full. All right, in which case it cannot learn the address, because MAC table is full. You have to send the packet across. So what's the effect? It's very inefficient, the use of bandwidth, because all your network bandwidth will be utilized just to take care of your MAC flooding, many cases, right? So this also puts lot of pressure on your MAC address table. What's the problem? This is all because of the traditional manageable switches having their MAC address table or MAC table implemented in the hardware. Okay, and okay, that can be counterattacked or that can be mitigated to some extent. How can it be done? We have got the logic of virtual LAN, where because we have created virtual LANs, the MAC flooding is not going across the whole of the network, but to limited space. Okay, I read for you. Since VLANs are used extensively layer 2, okay, when a VLAN tagged packet fails its match, it is flooded out only to the port that VLAN is belonging to. Because if there are 10 machines belonging to the particular VLAN, the packet will reach only those 10 machines. It's not going to be flooded across, because your router is going to stop that flooding, as you know that already. But there is a little trade-off here again. A single machine may be part of multiple VLANs necessarily in many cases. In that case, that again puts the trouble into the MAC table, because for every VLAN, it makes an entry in the MAC table. So there is always a trade-off in the MAC address explosion. That's one of the things. Second one about the your hardware constraint is the number of VLANs. So we have learned already about the 802.1q encapsulation packet frame, where the VLAN ID can have 12 bits, as it is mentioned, as it is shown on the screen. Having 12 bits in binary, of course, no zeros and ones, you can go up to 2 power 12. 2 power 12 is 2040, 4096. You can go up to 4096 VLANs, excluding your native VLAN, 4095 VLANs you can go. All right. Is that sufficient? Yeah, let's have a discussion about that further. Yes, IEEE 802.1q supports a maximum 4096. Data centers need to segregate traffic for security and separation. So VLAN is very important. There is no other way. As long as data centers remained single tenant network, you are supporting only to a specific organization, or you have the data center for that specific organization, the maximum number of 4096 seems to be okay. We don't need anything more. Okay, I have highlighted something called SEAM, which is okay. Practically, that is possible, but not theoretically. But is that true all the time? You are not going to have all the time single tenant network. Okay, you have to expand the data center in most of the case. So easily, the number of VLANs will exceed 4096. But your 802.1q header can have only 12 bits. So what can be done on that? Can we do something like the third point? The number of bits allotted to hold the VLAN is fixed. It is non-trivial, okay, which is very important to expand the size of the field to accommodate more VLANs. But that is not appreciated because the problem is many of the existing devices have to be replaced because they have got their hardware-based implementation of the switch and the router to implement the MAC table. Now, if you increase the packet format, all the software and the hardware components of the existing devices need to be changed. All right, so that is not a good solution at all. Okay, that's going to be very much cost ineffective. So can the solution be MPLS? What is MPLS? Multi-protocol label switching. We have spoken about MPLS already. So I request you to find out whether MPLS can be a remedy for handling this number of VLANs. All right. Okay. So that's the assignment which I give to you. For the interested readers, please read about them, which will really help you. Moving on, the third one is the spanning tree. The very famous spanning tree protocol runs on the switch even today. Okay, what's the advantage of spanning tree? Because when you talk about the switch, especially when you have multiple switches connected together, there is always a possibility that a loop can be created. For instance, if there are 4 switches connected, if all the 4 switches are interconnected using a mesh connection, obviously there is a possibility of routing loop. Okay, so enforcing loop free routing is very, very important. That is why we have this spanning tree protocol in action. Okay, if you are not sure about what is spanning tree protocol, I encourage you to learn about STP in switches. All right, so those who are comfortable with VLANs and its configuration, kindly move on in learning about VLAN trunking protocol and spanning tree protocol. Very two important layer 2 protocols. I encourage every one of you guys to explore that for your own benefit. Okay, though, all right, so though there are a lot of improvements, but STP also suffer from a major trouble. What is that? It forwards the frames to the root of the spanning tree. Okay, whenever you have got the spanning tree protocol, you know about spanning tree, right? The same logic. It always uses the root of the tree to forward the packet. Many cases which is not going to be the optimal path. Okay, so again, spanning tree also is not going to give you the best possible path all the time. Okay, on the other hand, is that comfortable? Are we comfortable with data center having the spanning tree? No, that's not the case because data centers need more cross-sectional bandwidth. What is that cross-sectional? So don't use all this traditional methodology that I should follow this one, I should follow that one. No, I do not want to have all these things. All I need is the efficient traffic. Okay, so using the most efficient path between any 2 nodes without any artificial hierarchy. That is what your spanning tree protocol is imposing. Okay, so STP was simply not built for the modern data center. So spanning tree also is not a best choice for you, as well as the first point is concerned. Second one, Adding, moving, and deleting resources should be easy. That is what the logics are. You should not make it very complicated. So I read the statements for you. Speed and automations are very critical. That's the reason why we should go for software-defined networking. Okay, and legacy network. What is legacy network? Our existing physical, conventional computer networks. They need a lot of time. Okay, for making in the changes in the network, but that is not the expectation of software defined networking, especially when you go for your clouds. And the failure recovery should be as fast as possible. You also cannot take a lot of time to recall. So the size and the scale of the data center uh, okay, demands a lot on the failure recovery. We are not happy even in the case of your lockdown browser, which is running on AWS, if I'm right, faces a trouble a week ago, if I'm right. All right, so there was a change in the schedule of the examination. It was postponed to another date. This is because of the failure in the network. Okay, in the last internal, if I am right. And today also there is a little trouble for the first page examination. So failure recovery is very much mandatory. Otherwise, the sufferers are going to be more. Okay, and at any point of time when there is a failure, you should go back to a normal best working mode, or the time when the network is known to be working in the correct way. Okay? So that's the call. That's the way of failure recovery. All right. The fourth one is the multi-tenancy. So it's very much necessary to have the separate resources belonging to each client. I do not want somebody's resource to be used by me. Probably in the other way, I do not want the resource which is allotted to me to be shared with my knowledge or without my knowledge with someone else. All right. So servers are having this expectation. They are not supposed to mix up the virtual machines on the same physical layer, and the same demand is on the network as well. Like segregation of traffic between the clients are very much important. Okay, so and this is the fourth expectation of your SDN. And the final one is the traffic engineering and path efficiency. This is more or less talking about your quality of service. Okay, if you look at the final point here, that is very crucial. State-of-art methods allow path computation to determine the shortest path. However, shortest path as defined by traditional technology is not always the optimal path. We have already learned about this in the case of link state routing protocol. Shortest path need not be the best path all the time. And again, these are all the demands. All right. Then comes our SDN applications. Okay, so these are the questions to be answered, because I'm not able to memorize all these questions. I just put it on screen so that we can read. What's the basic nature of application? There are two things. Okay, will it spend most of its time reacting to the incoming packets, or it will do the proactive switching? These are the two questions to be answered when you go for the SDN application. Second one, what is the type and nature of network with which application will be dealing? Is it on video streaming? Is it on banking application? Or is it on something like a electronic health record, which is, these are all very sensitive, or it's a normal dump of data? All right, so this is the type and nature of expectation where your SDN application is running. What's the intended deployment of the controller with respect to the switches it controls? Okay, we have spoken about the controller, which is the single point here in the case of SDN, and where are we placing is crucial. And finally, are the SDN need purely related to the data center and virtualization? These are some of the questions we need to answer, but these are all some of the guidelines for us to go for SDN. All right, but let's see. There are two things, major things. One is the reactive application. The other one is proactive application. Okay, and some of the points I would like to read for you. The communication between the switch and the controller will scale with the number of net flows injected into the node. I'm talking about the reactive. Okay, so reactive SDN applications are going to respond to the change in the network. Okay, switches frequently receive packet that matches no rule. Okay, that is the switch. Okay, it has started receiving a lot of packets, incoming packets, but many a times they are going to receive the packet where it already has some rule which may not match with it. So what should it do? It should go to the controller. Sir, please help me. That is what reactive application. Okay, so if you look at the second point, these packets are forwarded to the controller and then to an application. Okay, now the controller has to take a call. Very similar to if a student asks a question to the mentor and the mentor is not able to answer the question, he is going to forward the query simply to the head or the dean for any possible clarification and to respond. Very similar to that. When there is a query comes, if you don't have the answer, forward it. That is what reactive application. Okay. The application then inspects the packet and determines what is to be done on that. Okay. So the example is on the per user firewalling and security. Generally, that may not be available in the proactive application. What happens in the case of reactive application? What happens in the case of proactive? Lesser communication, because it's not going to respond. Most of the policies and the decisions are already stored into your in your switch or the controller. Okay, so no additional latency for flow setup because they are already pre-populated. Most flows will be wildcard. That is the trouble which is faced here. Okay, implying aggregated flows and thus less fine granularity. You don't have the specific answer. Something like a common response for majority of the questions. Okay, so like that. That is the disadvantage or the downside of your proactive applications. Okay, so what's exactly happening in the reactive application? Probably I'll go for this. This design is comfortable for our explanation. When you talk about the reactive application, as you could see, you have got this switch, a normal switch, okay, and you got the SDN controller. This is a single person, okay. So this SDN controller has got two APIs. One is REST API, the other one is LIST API. As most of you know, listener API and the other one is response API. So the listener API gets the information from your switch and then it forwards to the reactive application. I'm talking about the reactive application design. All the details are received, then it processes, then the decisions are taken, what kind of flow you have to use so that the quality of service will be achieved. Then the response is given to the response API. Then the SDN controller instructs the switch what is to be done. Reactive. Okay. Input flow are coming, decisions are taken, then the response is given, do like this. So what's the case of proactive? That is different case. In the proactive case, you could see the flows are not given as against here. No, packets are forwarded to the controller, but that's not the case with your proactive, where based on the network events, it does the self-learning. Okay, so it does all these things, and based on the REST APIs, it gives what kind of flows have to be set on the device. So common instruction is coming from the top all the time, so that you have to handle like this, you have to handle like that. Okay, that's the reason it is not having the finer granular information. For instance, there could be sometimes a confusion when the decision is taken. For this kind of request, what should I do? All right, because it can permit the asynchronous communication in the case of reactive, but that is not available in the case of proactive. You have to only listen to what the other person says. Okay, fine. So this is what my objective for today's class, and let me announce that we have completed the portion of computer networks by this successfully, and the great help you guys have rendered to me so far. All right, so what are we going to do next? In addition to your in-semester examination, qualitative assessment, entry, this and that, that's okay. What is our big picture? How are you going to go forward? I have some points to share with you, friends. Kindly listen to me, even if you are traveling in a bike, even if you are standing in a ration shop, or in a movie okay, queue, whatever may be the case, please look at this for a while before you move forward. Okay, many have okay, I'm talking about the feedback I have received from the final year my students. Okay, good number of those, even who have got more than 8 or 8.5, they are very comfortable and all right, so in fashion saying that no sir, I'm not very much good in programming. Okay, recently more than a dozen people appeared for Cisco internship through the efforts of Dr. Getzi and the department of the Cisco Networking Academy. All right, two people went to the HR round, but still they are not able to clear. What about the remaining people? They could not cross the programming level. Okay, I'm talking about the Cisco's internship. That is true with any company. Okay, if you guys feel I am not okay going to be good at coding, or coding is not my cup of coffee, I request you to please change your mindset. Okay, unless you are extraordinary in the other areas, so you have to be, if at all, if not master, but you should be comfortable with a specific programming language. If time permits, in this year I'll try to upload some of the interesting questions posted by Dr. Bright on programming assignments. You can try that in your own way. You have got hardly 6 months, probably 5 months more to go. please make yourself comfortable with programming language. So that's very, very crucial. You cannot say, I do not know. Even when you go for networking, you need coding. Okay. Second one is the domain knowledge. Simply having the book knowledge and the coding is not going to help you. You should have the domain knowledge. For instance, what's happening in finance, what's happening in agriculture, what's happening in medical, okay, in smart city, in blockchain area, cloud. All right, so mixed type of domain business. All right, everywhere you should have a domain knowledge of what is happening, at least in the basic level. That is again going to be crucial. The third is very, very crucial for anyone, student or faculty or industry people, research and innovation, which is going to take you up to the next level. Okay, none of you can say I'm not interested in that. You are supposed to indulge yourself in the research. So if any one of you guys are working on any of the project related to networking or any other domain for that matter, you can approach me as the head of the department, as your faculty. I'll try to find a best faculty match for you. So I'll assign you with the faculty who can help you in fine tuning your paper or publication or patent or innovation or whatever it is. Please do not um, shy away from this. That's crucial. Okay, and if you haven't taken up any mini project or internship, it's the high time for you. I am forwarding number of opportunities in internship. If you just read it and delete it or put it in the spam, I cannot take the responsibility. It is you guys who have to take it up. Okay, it's all my appeal, and it's my desire that you guys will do that as well. And certification courses again plays a major role to show that you are capable. Okay, you can do the projects, you can do internship, and also all your certification courses and online courses. Do as many as possible. Don't depend on me, don't depend on your mentor or parents. Okay, you have to take a step on that. Make your resume in the LinkedIn as well as your normal resume to be colorful, to be very, very technically skilled um, content. Okay, please do not take them for granted. These all play major role. So I want you guys to take this up. In the last minute, you have got hardly 5 months to go. Later you cannot complain me, I cannot complain you. Okay, we have to together grow in the interest of your life, our life, and our life. All right, so it's my appeal you guys to take this up. If you want me to prioritize, I would go for number one, number two, number three, four, the same one. Okay, in the same order I want you guys to progress. Okay, who are you to tell all these things? That may be your question. So just for your information I give you. So these are the recent publications we have made, myself with the support of Dr. Getsi and Dr. Dinesh Peter. Recent publication, I have only taken 2-3 of them to highlight the area which we are working. Okay, the first one we got it in the resource aware virtual machine migration in IoT cloud in the FGCS publication. Second one, combined forecast based VM migration in cloud data center. The recent one is the faulty analysis based VM migration for fault tolerant cloud data center, which means people involved in publication, research, and work. Okay, that's the reason they can speak. This is true with every of the faculty, whoever is handling classes for you. Okay, so there is a great opportunity for you guys to work on this research, innovation, coding, internship, or project X, Y, Z. All right, you have to continuously grow. You cannot say HOD is not good, the faculty is not good, mentor is not good, my parents are not good, my friends are not good. No, at the end of the day, it is you who has to face all these things. And I sincerely pray that being my own children, you guys can really do the things. You can take up all these things positively, just for your benefit and our benefit. That you will grow stronger in technology. That you will outperform your faculty and your friends. That you will sail high. Okay. So wish you all the best from the bottom of my heart. Um, I uh, I say no. Wish you all the best for your future endeavors and have a great life ahead. Okay. God bless you. And I stop sharing and I also stop my presentation.